Please welcome back to the stage. This is like being in broadcast news. It's so exciting. But please welcome back to the stage, John Dykes.
All right, mate. Thank you. You know, I hadn't finished my vocal warm-up, so my stretches just yet, Jasper, but I guess it can't be perfect. Good to see so many familiar faces still with us. Hope you're getting an awful lot out of Sports Matters. I know I certainly am today. And as Jasper just rightly said, we've flipped things around a little bit now. So Hash is going to be leading the singing of We Are the World a bit later on rather than me. But that doesn't change anything about what we do right now, which is to continue tying together a lot of the threads, I think, that we've already touched upon today. I'm taking it back into the broadcast space where I'm a lot more comfortable than, for example, with NFTs. Not to say I didn't pick up something from that early on, but we're going to turn now to the second of my guests that I've been very fortunate to be handed today, who is someone that has worked in an area that I'm very familiar with, that many of you will be familiar with, in that having had Peter Hutton earlier on today, who's covered so many broadcast and media roles around Asia and around the world. I now have someone who is similarly an absolute giant in terms of that particular space. So with a rearranged slot, of course, but I'm grateful to him for making the time available to us. We've got someone now who has basically spent a lot of time in Asia, having covered an Australasian role with a PGA Golf early on in his career. It then became a role with Lagardère that was just covering absolutely everything across Asia for a great deal of time before moving on to London, which is from where he's going to be joining us right now. And our next guest is responsible for all rights acquisitions as well as sales and marketing integrations for a group that, of course, has businesses including the Olympics, GCN, golf properties, Eurosport events, Discovery Plus, so much. I'm delighted to welcome to speak to us right now in our second major keynote conversation that I'm hosting, the President of Sports for Discovery, Andrew Georgiou. Andrew, great to have you with us.
Nice to be here. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. We're coming towards the end of an afternoon here. We're grateful to you for joining us early in the morning on, I'd imagine, a fairly cold London. Is it day? London, yeah?
Yeah, it's London and it's cold.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, I don't think anyone's too surprised about that. Let's get straight into things here, Andrew, because, you know, we've spoken about an awful lot today, but, you know, this is essentially Sports Matters, and it's an Asia-based thing. So my first question to you, bringing in, I think, all of that, is what does Asia mean to Discovery in a sports context? So nice broad start.
Well, you know, we've got quite a meaningful footprint in Asia across a number of our different platforms. Eurosport, of course, we're in over 10 million homes in Southeast Asia. We have a footprint in India, which is connected to 90 million users. We have a golf business where we a long-term partnership with the PGA Tour, which we launched in 2018. That takes us through to 2030. Where we've launched a global product called Golf TV. We've set up joint ventures with JCOM in Japan, with JTBC in Korea. We've launched that product in every single market around the world in the last couple of years. And of course, GCN, which is probably one of the biggest online cycling communities that exists on the planet. And in fact, it's larger by some margin compared to the rest of our competitors. And we've launched localized versions of GCN in a number of markets as well. So, you know, Asia holds an important place in terms of our ambitions. We've launched Discovery Plus in some markets in Asia, like the Philippines, which is going to be an important footprint for us. And as we look to launch Discovery Plus throughout the world in the coming number of years, Asia is certainly going to continue to be something that we keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to Discovery Plus in a short while, I think, Andrew, but let's stay with these very broad brushstrokes right now. And the second very broad question I've got for you is, you know, having worked in a global capacity out here in Asia and now working in the capacity that you are, could you tell me this? What relevance does Asia have to the broad global sports economy?
Oh, well, look, it's the first point I would say, as always, having lived and worked in Asia for close to 10 years, is Asia's a big place. There are a number of different constituent parts to Asia, and talking about Asia as a homogenous kind of mass of countries is probably not appropriate, because there are different parts of Asia that are at very different points in their evolution when it comes to, sport and interest in sport and the role of sport within the local markets. We've got some very mature markets like Japan and Korea, where sport has been an important ingredient. Certainly sports like football and baseball and golf in these markets have been mainstays. You've got markets like India, where cricket continues to be a growth opportunity, and the media market in India has still some significant headroom to grow over time, whereas in markets like Japan, you've got limited headroom in terms of the growth of that market potential. So the first caution, as always, is we can't, we don't talk about Asia as one homogenous mass. Having said that, I'm going to go straight ahead and do pretty much that. Asia continues to be an important, ingredient in the global footprint. There has been a lot of attention paid to Asia in the last 10 years in terms of the growth opportunities. We saw a real spurt on interest in China. And the opportunity and the promise of China has always been looming large in the way sports governing bodies think about the opportunity, but it's proven not to be that easy. And we're seeing, much more significant headwinds in China than we saw probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I think there's been a correction in that market that suggests it's going to take longer than people expect for China to truly fulfill its promise. But nevertheless, the size of the market can't be ignored, and the size of the opportunity can't be ignored. I think people just need a longer term strategy in making their businesses relevant in China. And that probably goes to a lot of rights holders who are thinking about China or Asia more generally as an opportunity. How do I make my business more relevant in the local market? And genuinely, sport, as always, is a local experience. It's not an international one. It's hard to experience sport across oceans. You've got to experience live and in person. It's about local communities and the local fandom and local engagement as much as it is anything else. And of course, the media landscape and digital has helped create better engagement, but you still have to create local relevance. And I think Asia continues to be a focus for, Western rights holders that are looking for opportunities. We've seen the last 3 Olympic Games, from Pyeongchang to Tokyo to Beijing, all being located in Asia as a destination for major events, continues to play an important role in supporting that global ecosystem, whether it be the Olympics and the IOC, whether it be Formula One, whether it be any number of different major events that have been hosted in Asia. Asia's economies continue to support these major events as we try to increase fandom, as we try to increase awareness and interest in the culture of sport, which it is meaningfully some time away in Asia still, but growing every day.
Andrew, obviously mindful of, your wise advice not to broadly categorize Asia. And goodness me, anyone who's worked here, particularly in the football context, knows that you can't just broadly talk about, the Asian football market. I'll come to football later, but seeing as you were taking us in that direction, just talking, if you can, about Asian consumers or portions of the Asian audience, is there anything about the way that the audiences in the region or parts of Asia consume sport and or engage with sport that might be informing decisions that are made globally? Is there anything about the experience here that you think is really leading to learnings elsewhere?
Yeah, there's no doubt, and this is not, I would say this is not new and won't be surprising to those that live in the region. But there is an accelerated uplift in mobile consumption in Asian markets. The kind of constant on the go, everything's in my pocket, the increased penetration of smartphones, the increased consumption of data in these markets means that you have to tailor both, pricing and packaging and content in a way that actually meets the demands on a mobile device. And what we're seeing is that, pricing packages, for example, are mobile-only pricing packages at a, maybe a fraction of the cost of cable platforms or big TV packages. So you could have, in India, you're seeing, mobile subscription fees, which only allows you to consume content on your mobile device. It's cheaper, it's much more affordable. It tailors to a certain kind of consumer that allows them to consume on the go and on their phone. Content that's tailored to that device is then something that logically has to follow as a result of that. So I think the mobile consumption for sure is something that we're seeing being led out of Asia, that is then being used in other parts of the world. And as I look even in the UK, BT Sports has a mobile price plan that they've used for their mobile only customers, which in a market like the UK is quite unusual and something that is interesting and I think, has taken its lead from other markets.
Can we talk about OTT right now? And, I was at a conference recently where a panel came to the conclusion, or at least, they declared that every major live sporting event inevitably will be streamed. That's it. Every single thing will be streamed before too long. What's your take on that? And again, in the Asian context, or in terms of, your discovery ambitions?
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful about what that question actually means. If the question is, will all sports only be streamed, then I doubt that very much. I don't think there's a world where streaming becomes the only solution to sports distribution. If I look at the way we think about our own rights strategy and how we use either Discovery Plus or Eurosport Player, which are our own OTT products, and we launched Eurosport Player in 2008, probably some time before most players started launching their OTT products. We've got quite meaningful experience. The way we think about how we use OTT versus how we use cable versus how we use our free-to-air networks versus how we might use third-party social platforms, we try to create a strategy that says everything we have is available on digital. Everything that we have is available on streaming as much as we can. We see streaming as another platform for us to engage with consumers who are either not cable subscribers, cord cutters, or cord nevers, who've never actually had a cable subscription, but they've decided not to have cable or satellite or as a platform within their homes. So there is an increasing group of consumers whose only method of consuming sports content is on streaming. There are another group of consumers who don't either have cable or streaming. They consume all their content on free platforms, whether it be, the Twitter, Facebook, Weibo, any of the Asian specific social platforms in Korea, China, and Japan. You've got consumers who only consume on those platforms, but you also still have meaningful volumes of consumers who are watching television by traditional means. And I don't, that they are decreasing, certainly, but they're going to be around for a long time. So if the question is, do we see streaming as being the only solution for sports? Yeah. I doubt that very much for a very, very long time. But do I see it as becoming a meaningful partner to other means? Absolutely. And I would say it's probably going to become the only place where you can get everything, because every broadcaster and every rights holder definitely has a streaming solution as part of its platform.
Andrew, we're racing through the time allocated. We've only got just over 2 minutes here, so I'm thinking this might just be the last one we can go with here. The pandemic that's been touched upon today, this is very much a forward-looking conference rather than looking back at the difficulties of the last 18 months. But I think it's fair to say that most people are saying that lessons have been learned that have accelerated certain processes. What do you think the lessons are that you guys have learned most that's maybe changed some of the thinking and perhaps the long-term or even shorter-term planning?
Yeah, remote production. We were very lucky because we had started an investment strategy in Discovery around our technology that allowed us to be well ahead of the game when it came to remote production and remote technology. We went through an Olympic Games last year where we were in the heart of the pandemic, and we had 400 to 500 commentators around Europe who were commentating for the games that we physically couldn't invite into our offices. So having them, and literally some of them were commentating in the middle of their night from their living rooms, and trying to keep their voice down, but yet be excited at the same time about what they were watching, but being able to do that remotely, understanding the impact of not having commentators at venues and not having commentators, in the same place. I mean, literally, when you've got two commentators commentating on an event, the lack of energy as a result of them not being physically located in the same place versus the few that we could bring into our offices had a meaningful impact in terms of the quality. You had the technology, but the technology couldn't make up for the fact that, commentators being at least in the same place, if not on venue, had a major impact, negatively in that instance, on the quality of the commentary, because you just couldn't feed off your partner in commentary and create the excitement levels and engagement that you would otherwise be able to do. So there's a lot of learnings during COVID. We don't have to travel as much, but what's been really interesting to me is that post the COVID lockdown ending, people didn't realize during COVID how much they missed the real engagement, the real meetings, the real interaction. And I think there'll be a rebalancing of travel, but I don't think I think people have also realized that it's not a state of permanent, but you can't just do everything remotely. So there'll certainly be a rebalancing around that as well.
And that's a neat way to wrap things up, because we've done this one remotely. You've done it in the morning, your time. You've raised your voice and got excited where you needed to, and you've given us some tremendous insights, as of course you always do. Andrew, thank you so much for that one. It would be good to be able to connect with you personally one of these days, and hopefully that's not too far off. But everybody in the room, please, let's have a hand for Andrew Georgiou.
Thanks, John. Bye, everyone.